just while you have the book in your hand, you've obviously been through it in copious detail yourself.
Actually, I haven't finished yet, but I've been through. I mean, it's a really fascinating. I think this book is going to be one of the most important sources, pieces of source material, not alone for Donegal fiddle playing and East Donegal fiddle playing, but just as a sort of a picture or a testament of somebody who was an outstanding player, but not just about the music and the music that he created, but the community that it came from and the environment and his thoughts about the whole thing, about the music, about the community and everything. I mean, there's not too many of these around in Irish traditional music. As a composer, yeah, I mean, he's an outstanding composer. I mean, you think of the Green Fields of Glentown. I've just been sort of looking at that one in a way, but yeah, I mean, but what strikes me about it is that the tunes are a way for him of. I was really surprised to find East Donegal featuring so much, and Clare as well, obviously in the whole thing, and that it was such a wellspring for him as a composer. You know, that the people and the places like the Green Fields of Glentown. If you look at these titles and the stories about those who he grew up with, and his own feelings about the place and about how it changed. If you go through the first few, the Lucky Bag is just, I think he's saying about people, you know, pulling something from it. Kinnically Hill, Hugh McGovern was a fiddle player who had McGovern's Bar, and it was involved in organising that session I was talking about in Letterkenny. Oam and Goam, that's a whole discussion in itself, you know, where he takes the music into the fairy realm, which so many other musicians have done, you know, everybody from Neely Boyle to the Tarlik McSivnia, and then he puts it his own spin on it, and uses it in a way to make a point that East Donegal, as he says, is as the culture of East Donegal is as Gaelic as the culture of, he mentions everywhere from West Donegal to Dougal Éireann to Antrim. You know, it's I think he feels that East Donegal hasn't really been recognised, that it was kind of written off because it was kind of like the Pale of Donegal. He doesn't see it that way. So on Hawkeye, you know, the Scottish thing, and then history is never far from the equation either. The March to Kinsale, you know, just looking over these tunes, I thought, you know, it's much wider than just traditional music. This is a whole big discussion about, and that he will be contributing to it, about colonisation, which Irish people tend to ignore now because we think we've got our own Republic of Ireland now and we don't have to worry about being colonised anymore. But actually, there is quite a big hangover for colonised people, and I think that'll be. I mean, you'll be looking at stuff like I just brought this book as an example, Culture and Imperialism by Said, and then there's the whole issue of identity. Like, I contributed to this book, which is Alternative Ulsters by Mark Carruthers, who's a BBC presenter, and it's conversations on identity. And it's sort of talking about what is Ulster. I mean, what do you understand by Ulster? You know, is it, you know, British, Irish, Ulster, Northern Ireland? You know, the whole thing. It's all contested territory, and this is all covered in Tommy's book. So he's going to contribute to a lot of discussions through this book.
I spoke about the conversation in the house, in his home house, and it was a very slow, unhurried process. And I think this is just a continuation of that. You know, the rest of it would be like scribbling and writing stuff big so you could see it if you look down at the ground, or, you know, he just, and he wrote it out, and, you know, for the most part, he was a very unhurried person. You know, he was never in a rush anywhere. He never walked very fast. Can't say the same for his driving. He, you know, everything about him was very calm. As we got older, so Lachlan, who's the youngest in our house, Lachlan himself would have done so much together. But he completely relaxed by then. He used to work for the council, but that had stopped, and he was just playing. And I'd say he began to compose again an awful lot more. Like I'd say a lot of the compositions in that book were written in the last 20 years of his life. And then of course he was gone for a lot of that 20 years. I was raising my own children. We didn't play together a lot in those years. So I wasn't hearing this music at all, you know. And then he came back from the States, and I think it was Matty Joe Hamish organised a concert in Spiddle. And he asked myself and Murty Ryan, there was Dad, and then there was Noel Hill. Myself and Murty went up, did our little bit, and Dad was there. It was kind of the first time really I'd seen him in, I think it was 7 years. So there was a lot of chatting, you know. And then he set up to play, and my brother Lachlan was with us. And my brother Lachlan probably has more music than I do, but he never played. But he'd whistle anything for you. So he's a very great knowledge of music. And I remember looking at Lachlan and going, I said, it's like he's speaking in Arabic. Like the structure of the tunes, even though I was used to him prior to him going to America, by the time he came back, like, it was just so, I don't want to use the word complicated because it wasn't complicated. I mean, it is if you're trying to learn them, you know, someone else, but it was just that other level that I spoke about previously, that there was another level in his mind that I'll never have access to. You know, I mean, my mind isn't going to go there. I don't know what creates that, if it's just an anomaly, if it was like slightly spectrum, I don't know what it was. But there was definitely, maybe I'm biased, but there was definitely a genius in there when it comes to traditional music, you know, because he had a massive love for it. I mean, he just loved Irish music. He loved everything about it.
Do you look at this much, the book?
I do, because for me, I mean, coming from an area in Castlefin that's not far from, I mean, I'm the Finn Valley, Tommy's the Lagan Valley. For me, it's important, and I'm so proud, you know, to have, I mean, there's a lot of talk, and there have been down through the years a lot of talk about music in Donegal, and a lot of it was concentrated on southwest Donegal and different other areas, you know, and kind of East Donegal got maybe forgotten about. But thanks to Martin McGinley and a few others now, that's sort of changing. And so I'm so proud that we have a representative to represent the east side of the county. And I mean, sometimes the word legend is used and abused, but I think Tommy deserves that title, if I'm allowed to say that. And so therefore, even in terms of his compositions, I think it's important that the likes of me who's teaching music and to get these tunes into the session repertoire, to get them taught to younger people coming up, and because those tunes are so melodic, and even though they're hard and they're difficult, I think it'll be a very short time before it's only, I mean, there have been a few, like from a way back, that were always in the session. They came into the session scene very quickly, like Gráinne's Jig and La Casa Mulligan and those types of tunes. Like, there's very few musicians who cannot play those tunes. But those are the ones, for example, the two jigs I just played there earlier, they need to be, you know, brought more into the session environment, into the repertoire, the traditional repertoire. And I'm just so happy to do that. And I feel if I can, and that's why, you know, the book is important. Plus the book gives a lot, it's not just his compositions, he gives a lot of detail at the start about how you would maybe bow tunes and how you would play a tune in a certain way, and he gives so many different examples, and it's lovely to see his own handwritten work in there, and a lot of work has gone into that book.
Yeah. As a composer, I mean, he's first rate, and you're always guaranteed surprises. And I told the story about the fuchsia up in Glencollinkill, and so that's a tune that I'm in the process of learning at the moment. Preparing for the first anniversary, there was a going to be a chat about Tommy on the occasion of his first anniversary in Glencullen at Donegal Fiddle Week. So I left the session, which was going on in the car park, and went over to the car to drive up to the house to prepare for that. And I arrived at the car, and it was absolutely covered in, the bonnet was covered in fuchsia. And as I was pulling out of the car park and driving up to the house, the fuchsia was streaming over the windscreen, and I thought, this is really bizarre. And then I got up to the house, and it didn't pass no further remarks, but then I opened Tommy's book, and what was the first thing I came across? But the tune about the fuchsia, complete with Tommy's illustrations on it. And I thought, there it is there actually. The fuchsia, the display of deep purple and red flowers in the hedgerows is the flowering of the fuchsia plant, which in Irish is known as Jura J, meaning God's tears. My childhood memories are of these striking displays of colour. So I thought, God, that is really extraordinary. And I know that other unusual things have happened. But yeah, the book's full of surprises.
He said, like, you listen to an Irish song, and he said, it's a whole story. And it's a history. And there's so much in it. You know, like God almighty, the creator, if he's around today listening to, what's it they say, it takes 24 producers and 12 writers to write 3 words that they repeat for 3 minutes. You know what I mean? But he loved that whole concept of stories in songs. And like he ended up actually writing songs for Finnish. And he actually wanted the book to be in his handwriting. But it would have taken such a huge effort to print something like that and to create the print, the typeset and whatever, that it wasn't possible. But so all those pages, I mean, he used to walk around with this thing, and it was like, you know, it never left his person. He would never leave it somewhere. He gave it to me, like, I visited them in Donegal there one time, and he gave me this. He said, you know, have a look. Now, it was, you know the size of the book, it's a tome, so there was a lot of pages. And I came back, I was staying in a hotel in Letterkenny, and I came back in, and I was flicking through it. I was going, jeez, like, you know. So I'm back out the following day, and he said, and I was actually going home, so he said, oh, have you got that? And I said, well, I do, but I mean, I only got to read. Oh, that's okay, he said, but there was no way it was leaving. He wasn't going to leave it with me for a week. It wasn't going to Clare, it wasn't leaving his sight. And he was working on that book for quite a long time. And I know he kind of got things off his chest that I'm sure now, after, you know, again, as I said, when that energy is released and it has this bigger knowledge, I'm sure he'd come back now and go, you know, there was no need for that. Some things he carried, but it would be kind of, if he got hurt by somebody, you know, again, like I said, he was very guarded. So if he let somebody in and then he perceived that they hurt him or misread a situation, if he did, that would hurt him so deeply that he wouldn't be able to lose it. You know, some of us would just leave something there and move on. There was times he couldn't just do that. So for a man that kind of looked very, you know, calm and collected, there wasn't an awful lot of emotion in him. And again, that's very obvious in his playing, you know. I remember Frankie coming to, and Mairead coming to Ennistimon one Sunday night, and it was like U2 would arrive for me. I was like, starstruck. You know, they were 14 or 15. And they were all there, Mark Kelly and Frankie had come to ask Dad, could he record that air? And he said, what's it called? And I was, it doesn't have a name. So it was Frankie named it. And I thought he really picked a beautiful name, because when you listen to the air itself, it does sound like something that you'd hear drifting, you know. So just to bring it back to the composition, I think he was a very natural composer that way. That his tunes weren't contrived. I mean, there might be parts of tunes that he tried and linked together. But they were very much just sit at a table and listen, and whatever he heard, he would write out. You know,